One of the most vivid memories from kindergarten was when my teacher wrote the number 2000 on the chalkboard and explained to us how we would be entering the new millennium and how exciting it would be to be a part of that moment in history. So I wanted to take a minute to think if you have any particularly standout memories from kindergarten. Do they involve using one of these? How about this? How about this? Do you recognize this? I definitely don't recognize this. So these are things that I observed in my doctoral training when I was observing kindergarten classrooms. And teachers are using these around the country right now to help children develop strategies for remembering information. And in case you're curious, this is a tens frame, a number bond, a rec and rec, and a graphic organizer. Context is everything. And since kindergarten seems to have changed drastically within the past 20 years, it's important to continue to understand contextual factors on children's cognitive development, specifically teachers' references to children's thinking and strategy use. So what's expected of kindergartners today? It's a lot. When you enter kindergarten, it's expected that you have developed the ability to sit still, pay attention to the teacher, maybe you're entering with some basic numeracy and literacy skills. But when you leave, you will have developed the ability to process and store information with the intention to recall later, as well as make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. And these last two skills are ones that I chose to highlight in my research. They're sometimes referred to as children's strategic memory skills, and they're thought to serve children's long-term academic success. And so in my research, I tracked 76 kindergartners across 2 academic years, totaling 8 time points. We tracked them in terms of their use of strategies when working to remember novel information. These children were nested across 10 different classrooms across 3 schools, and we worked with kindergarten teachers to observe their use of instructional language during mathematics and language arts classes. Specifically, we observed them using GoPro videos, and we gathered a total of 2 hours of footage per teacher. They were interested in their use of cognitive processing language. So what is cognitive processing language? And before you look at this, I'm going to talk you through this graph. So each bar represents 1 teacher. We assess teachers every 30 seconds for their use across these 5 different component codes. And so somebody that might be high in their use of cognitive processing language, or their references to children's thinking, cognitive structuring activities, or strategy suggestions, might say, if that doesn't make sense, go back and reread your little picture. What are some strategies you could use to help you figure that out? And how many seashells are there in all? How did you solve that problem, and how did you know to add? Teachers were then split into high or low groups based off of their use of cognitive processing language. And our results evidence that children who were exposed to higher levels of cognitive processing language in kindergarten developed more rapidly over the course of kindergarten and first grade years than their peers in lower cognitive processing language classrooms. They also ended first grade with higher scores than their peers in those lower classrooms. But what happens if I enter kindergarten with lower initial skills? I can't really focus as well as my peers. They are sometimes referred to as children's self-regulation skills. We were interested to see if the role of cognitive processing language had a differential impact on children with lower self-regulation skills, and that's exactly what we found. Children who were with lower skills, the exposure to higher levels of CPL, or cognitive processing language, was very important for their success. And so despite these findings, very little is known about children's everyday lived experiences, so additional research in this area is necessary. Additionally, this research is important because it capitalizes on existing strengths of teachers. Not one additional thing that they have to remember to do. These findings can be provided to instructional coaches to help teachers further refine what they're already doing. You might remember that every teacher in our study exhibits some degree of cognitive processing language. And then finally, we still don't know what causes variability in teachers' cognitive processing language. And so one thing I'm looking forward to examining here at Florida State University is the role of teachers' mathematics anxiety and how that might impact their instructional practices. Thank you so much.